Good evening and welcome to the Planning Commission of August 16, 2016. We'll do the Pledge of Allegiance, and Miriam, can you lead us in the pledge today?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The first item, approval of the minutes. However, we do not have any to approve. I just wanted to inform you of that. Thank you. And we can have roll call, please.
Yes, Commissioner Johnson. Chair Biasotti is excused. Vice Chair Kayal excused. Commissioner Chase is not here this evening. Commissioner Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner Mishra.
Here.
Commissioner Petersen.
Here.
Commissioner Samut.
Here.
Thank you.
And the next item is communications. Staff.
Commissioner Johnson and commissioners of the city of San Bruno, I'd like to introduce tonight a new planning staff person. We have a new associate planner. We have Megan Woolley-Osdahl, who's joined our staff here in the Community Development Department. And Megan comes to us from Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Megan graduated from the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill, worked for the town of Chapel Hill for about 5 years, and did a whole variety of projects there: downtown revitalization, housing, commercial development. Got quite a bit of experience there. And as we're implementing our transit corridors plan, we were fortunate enough that she came our way, and she's going to fit very nicely into our staff and help us guide a number of projects here in San Bruno in terms of redeveloping our community, our downtown area, with mixed-use projects, housing, and commercial projects. So we welcome Megan to our staff and to our community. And in addition to processing projects, we also look to Megan to help us with our recently adopted walk and bike plan. Megan will be staffing the BPAC, the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, and will help us implement that plan over time. So welcome to Megan.
Thank you, Jim. On behalf of the Commission, we welcome you. We look forward to your just your talents and all of the information and what we can learn from you. So welcome to our community, Megan. Thank you. Welcome. Okay, before we go on to public comment, I wanted to first remind folks that there are staff reports in the back of the table, and you're welcome to obtain those. Also, for our home viewers, you can go on to sanbruno.ca.gov, and also all the Planning Commission meetings are recorded and can be replayed on Thursday at 2 o'clock on the cable television channel 1. And also, if you can please silence your telephones and take any phone calls outside of the chambers. And we ask that you address all questions and comments to the Commission, please. Thank you. Your microphone is off. All right. That makes a big difference. Should I repeat that? No. Okay, I will repeat that. Well, first, welcome back to you, Megan, and thank you for joining our team, and we look forward to the opportunity of all that you're going to provide us. So thank you and welcome. And I want to remind us before we go on to public comment that staff reports are in the back of the room. You're welcome to take packets. For our home viewers, they can be viewed on television on the sanbruno.cable.ca.gov. And all Planning Commission meetings are recorded and televised on the cable TV on Channel 1. They are also replayed the following Thursday at 2 o'clock. And additionally, if you can please silence your cell phones, take any phone calls outside of the chambers, and we ask that you address any questions or comments to the Commission. Thank you. The next item is number 3, and that's public comment. It's for any comments that are not on the agenda. Is there anybody from the public who wishes to address the Commission on any items that are not on the agenda? Okay, we'll close public comment. And to the commissioners, is there any conflict of interest? Okay. And we'll move on to, there is a change on the agenda. And we have had a request to change item C as to item A, and item A will go on to item C. And so the first item will be 123 Poplar Avenue. It's a request for a use permit to add a total of 150 square feet of floor area to the existing single-family dwelling and convert 500 square feet of garage area to living area, increasing the living area to 1,945 feet above the maximum permitted living area of 1,825 square feet, which is above the maximum of 1,650 square feet permitted, and a floor area ratio of 0.73, whereas a floor area ratio of 55 is permitted, and that's per section 12.200.030.B2 and 5 of the San Bruno Municipal Code. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Commissioner. So as you mentioned, this is a request for a use permit to add a total of 150 square feet of floor area to the existing dwelling, converting 500 square feet of garage area to living area. And the request for the use permit is to increase the living area to 1945, which is above the maximum permitted living area of 1825 for a one-car garage. It's also to increase the gross floor area from 2,045 to 2,195, which is above the maximum 1,650 square feet permitted, floor area ratio of 0.73, where an FAR of 0.55 is permitted. Per staff's analysis of this project, the existing home is a San Francisco style home with a zero lot line on either side of the existing structure. And when staff took this project into consideration, we looked at the existing nature of the home and the immediate adjacent homes in the neighborhood. The adjacent homes, as you can see in attachment B, are a similar San Francisco style home with zero lot line. And as you can see under the staff's project analysis on page 4 of the staff report, we created a table sort of listing the lot areas for each lot. They're all substandard 2,500 foot lots, and they all have floor area ratios that exceed the maximum permitted. The existing floor area ratio, as I mentioned, for this project is 0.68, and the proposed is 0.73, which is actually lower than any of the adjacent homes in the surrounding neighborhood. Another thing to note is that this project has already been approved by the Planning Commission in 2009. It went through the Architectural Review Committee, and it also went through the Planning Commission and was approved unanimously by both committees. And so the staff made the determination that this wouldn't have to go back to the Architectural Review Committee, given that the project was extremely similar to the project that was presented to the Planning Commission back in 2009. The difference to this project is that there's a slight modification and a stairway that was changed so that it would not encroach into the required setback on the left side of the property, and that it would respect the minimum setback requirements per the municipal code. The additions in the rear of the home on the second story, 150 square feet. It's going to be utilizing existing materials, existing roofing, and the storage area below is just going to be used for storage. It doesn't have legal ceiling height. The advantage of this project is that we're ensuring through the downstairs space that the area that is intended to be used for parking currently doesn't meet the standard length for a car. And through this project, they're going to be modifying their bathroom, and it's going to give them 20 feet of length, which is the minimum required per the municipal code. And on top of that, the driveway is substandard, so this will allow them to park a vehicle inside their garage. And since parking is an issue in the neighborhood, this is actually working to the benefit of the neighborhood for them to take on this project. One other thing to note, you'll see on page 3 of the staff report here that the public comment says that staff had not received any comments as of the writing of this report. We did receive a comment since the writing of the report from one neighbor who expressed concerns about the conversion of the garage, part of the garage square footage to living area, but staff spoke with the neighbor and addressed their concerns by explaining to them that the conversion of garage area to living area is going to be in an area that couldn't really be utilized by the vehicle in the first place given the current configuration of the garage, and that we were going to, as I mentioned earlier, going to be pushing the bathroom back and allowing for the minimum 20-foot length. So that actually addressed their concerns because it's going to be fixing the problem of them not being able to park a vehicle in the garage. I spoke with the homeowners and confirmed that they own 2 vehicles. So now they will be able to park one of those in the garage. They're both standard lengths of 15 and 16 feet respectively. And regarding the public comment, there was one more thing that the neighbor pointed out that they would like to see addressed. And they expressed a concern that for garbage cans and recycling bins, that they're often left on the sidewalk, and that they would like to see included as a condition of approval for this project that the applicant store the waste and recycling containers in a storage area in the garage such that it would not encroach into a 12 by 20 designated parking area. So staff included a condition of approval, which is to be labeled condition 33, that we would like to have included as part of this project. And so staff's recommendation is that, and I guess to add, is that the applicant consented to having this condition of approval included in the project. And it's been placed before all of you, I believe. So staff would like to include, as part of their recommendation, that the Planning Commission approve use permit 16-011 based on findings of fact 1 through 6 and conditions of approval 1 through 33 instead of 32. 33 would read, owner will store all waste and recycling containers in a storage area in the garage. Such area shall not encroach into the 12-foot by 20-foot designated parking area. On days when the waste and recycling containers are scheduled for pickup, they shall be placed in the driveway without blocking the sidewalk. And this concludes my staff report, and please let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for staff?
Through the chair.
Commissioner Petersen.
There are tables of square footage on page 3, and there are also a table that includes square footage and percentages on drawing T1. Which one is correct?
So are you, through the chair, are you referring to the table that's listed on the plans?
Yes, on T1 there's a table that lists the area of the addition as 108 square feet, and the existing lot coverage, the proposed coverage is 48.5%, and the staff report has different numbers, and I just wanted to see if which one was correct.
So, again, through the chair, the correct number is the one that's listed on page 3. And that should be the correct number.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions? Commissioner
Chair.
Shaw?
Couple questions to staff. For conditions of approval number 12, since this project has a history of not following through with the Planning Commission approval, I just wanted to get a concurrence on what happens on January 1st, 2017, when California adopts the 2016 version of the code. So the entire document is based on 2013. If the applicant is not able to apply for a building permit at that time, by January 1st, 2017, do all these codes get refreshed to 2016, or does the 2013 still apply?
Through the chair, if I could, we expect that the applicant will submit an application for a building permit prior to January 1, 2017. And in that case, the 2013 codes would apply.
But if the applicant does take 6 months to get back to us, which
Then
would be post
the
January?
newly adopted codes that become effective January 1, 2017 would apply.
Okay, so all these would be refreshed.
Correct.
The second comment I had was regarding conditions of approval number 33. It's the first time I've actually seen this condition of approval. And I'm wondering if, the second part of this condition of approval, on days where the waste and recycling containers are scheduled for pickup, they shall be placed in the driveway without blocking the sidewalk. Is this going to become a standard condition of approval moving forward?
And through the chair, this is an item that came up as a result of a conversation the planner had with a neighbor, I believe. And so in order to address the concern, this was a condition that was recommended tonight for this particular application. Apparently, there's been some concern in this case that waste containers have been left out beyond typical periods of time and at times have been placed on the sidewalk. Actually, there are requirements through our recycling service and our franchise that require that waste containers be put out no sooner than a certain period of time before pickup and collected a certain period of time after pickup, and they shouldn't obstruct the sidewalk in any case. I would say that this condition, as you have it here, is more advisory in nature, that between the city of San Bruno and Recology, we have requirements with respect to waste pickup that would typically address this concern. So I would see this as more an advisory condition particular to this application, and I would not expect this to be a standard condition of approval.
The second part of this condition of approval seems to me overreaching. One, because it's not enforceable. Two, I've found my trash can sitting on the sidewalk when I get home, and it was thrown there either by a pedestrian or whoever. I just feel like this condition of approval is above and beyond, and I'd like the commission to consider keeping the first part, but not the second, as part of the condition of approval.
Chair?
Are you done with your comments?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Commissioner
Absolutely
James?
have to agree with Commissioner, I'm sorry, having an aneurysm or something. But yeah, I agree, absolutely. It doesn't need to be where, without blocking the sidewalk. I mean, people put the garbage cans out on the sidewalk all the time, in my neighborhood as well. So I agree with the first part needs to be there, but the second part, I think should be deleted.
Any other comments from the commission?
If I may, through the chair, in reading this condition, and as I indicated, there are city requirements and requirements of the waste hauler that really should address the second part of this proposed condition in any case. I would agree with the recommendation made by Commissioner Mishra.
Thank you.
I also have some comments. In the report on page 11, there's some photographs of the subject site as well as a neighboring property. And the neighboring property has some trees, trimmed bushes, trees that cover the garbage cans almost. And would that be a suitable result? Because the condition indicates store in the storage area in the garage. And so if we're requiring it to be in the garage, I'm certainly supportive of my commissioner's comments, but I'm looking at the picture below, it seems to be also a suitable solution. I wanted to get some feedback from staff to see if that's something that you could comment on.
I'd be happy to. What I understand is that the applicant, the owner, is accepting of this recommended condition to store the waste containers in the garage, and I understand that the waste containers could be stored in the garage without hindering parking of a car in the garage. I would recommend that that occur. I think that, as we've discussed already, in terms of when the containers are put out, when they're collected, that's already addressed.
Correct, okay. So I'm hearing that the picture below would not be a good option should that come into play.
Agreed.
I just wanted to be sure I was clear on that. Okay. All right, any other comments? All right, we'll open the public hearing, and if the applicant can please step forward to the microphone. If you please state your name and your street name, and describe your project.
Jessica Tellez, street name is Poplar, and I'm sorry I didn't catch the last.
If you can speak to your project.
Yes, we're trying to convert part of our garage into a living area in order to accommodate our growing family. We just had a baby 4 months ago, and we're a little tight for space, so we want to raise our children here in the community, so trying to modify the home just to accommodate our family.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you. You can take a seat. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to comment on this project? Okay, hearing none, public hearing is now closed, and bring it back to Planning Commission discussion.
Through the chair.
Commissioner Petersen.
I move the commission approve use permit 16-11 based on findings of fact 1 through 6 and conditions of approval 1 through 32 with the additional condition 33 as proposed by staff and modified by the commission.
Okay.
Second?
Second, okay, it's been moved in second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries, and there is a 10-day appeal process. Or actually, would this really apply for 10-day appeal? Because it is an improvement versus,
There is a 10-day appeal process.
Okay.
You are correct.
okay. So there is a 10-day appeal process. Okay, thank you. Okay, next item of business is item B, 1111 Montgomery Avenue. It's a request for a use permit and architectural review permit to demolish the attached garage at the rear lot and construct a new 1,484 square foot storage building in the rear of the lot that would be used to store contractor materials and include an attached 530 square foot two-car garage to service the existing single-family home that would remain on the site for sections 12.96, 150C, point D, and 12.108.010A of the municipal code. Staff report, please.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair and members of the Commission. Michael Smith, Planning Department staff. You have before you a request for a use permit and architectural review permit to demolish the detached garage at the rear of the lot and construct a new storage building at the rear of the lot that would be used to store contractor materials. The building would include an attached garage that would service, a two-car garage that would service the existing single-family dwelling that would remain on the lot. And this is for the property located at 1111 Montgomery. The project is located within an M1 district, which is an industrial district. Housing is not permitted within the district, and existing dwellings are allowed to remain as non-conforming uses within this district. There are many dwellings interspersed among the industrial buildings within this district, but there are a few properties that have both residential, and industrial coexisting on the same property. Those that do exist provided feasibility for the project, which includes a tenant-occupied residence. The project was reviewed at the April 14, 2016 Architectural Review Committee meeting, and the committee forwarded the project to the Planning Commission with the following recommendations. 1, to label on the plans the parking space and trash area, which has been done on the plans before you. 2, to include a condition of approval that no workers or employees shall be allowed to arrive on the site, only the delivery and pickup of materials in the storage building, and no material shall be stored outside of the storage building. This has been done through a condition of approval on the project. 3, additional details will be required for the final landscape and irrigation plan for water-efficient landscaping. The front landscape area will be required to install landscape boulders or another barrier to protect it from vehicles parking in this landscaped area. The landscaping will be required to be maintained in a healthy and growing condition for the life of the project. This has been added as a condition of approval also and will be executed prior to building permit approval. Today's hearing was noticed to the public, and staff received emailed comments from the owner of the adjacent property to the north. The email is attached to the staff report as Exhibit G, and staff has done its best to address the neighbors' concerns, but I want to call your attention to the suggestion to have, video surveillance or monitoring system for Railroad Place located behind the subject property. From my conversations with the adjacent neighbor, apparently there's some dumping that's going on there, which I have forwarded that issue to code enforcement. So that we're going to try to have that dealt with. But to keep people from doing that in the future, the neighbor's suggestion was to have some sort of a video surveillance on the site. I brought that up to the applicant. I think they'll speak on it today, but it would be nice to get your input on the matter as well. Other unique conditions of approval include, like as I said, that no workers can come to the site, and just in general, we were going for a warehouse type building here, so we think that the architecture kind of reflects that. The building is a little bit difficult in that it has zero lot line, or almost zero lot line, so the sides are facing both the railroad tracks and the adjacent parking lot, so it's hard to put windows or anything of too much detail on those elevations. But we'd love to get your opinion on that as well. Staff is recommending at this point that we approve the architectural review permit and the use permit based on findings 1 through 8 and subject to conditions of approval 1 through 28. And I'm available for any questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you for your report. Are there any questions from staff? City Commission for staff?
Through the chair.
All right.
Oh,
Go ahead.
sorry, go ahead.
Commissioner Chess?
I was just wondering, on number 2, is there a difference between a storage building and a warehouse regarding use restrictions? A really good question. Is there? On the email from,
Are you referring to the email from the?
Yes, I am.
Okay, hold on.
item number 2 of 8.
Page 2, item 2.
Well, it's actually, I guess it would be page 2 of his email. I know, God, page 3 of his email.
Okay, so has the city taken a look at his existing contractor storage yard?
Well, not so much that, but I'm wondering if there's a difference between a quote storage building and a quote warehouse, as he has stated here, I mean, regarding.
Well, the definition in the code is a contractor storage building, not necessarily a warehouse.
Okay.
So this is really meant to store his own materials for his own personal use that he uses out on the job site,
Okay,
as opposed to a general warehouse.
okay, thank you.
Commissioner Petersen?
First question is, On page 2, item 1, item 2, sorry. No workers or employees shall be allowed to arrive on the site, only the delivery and pickup of materials in the storage building. So that means that you can deliver and pick up materials, but no human beings can be involved?
Through the chair. The contractor or the builder of the building, he is allowed to pick up his own materials. The reason behind the condition was to keep it from becoming more of a industrial use that had employees coming to and fro. The reason being is because that would carry a higher parking requirement, which they were not willing to meet at this time on the site.
Okay. Let's see, I'm looking for that condition. Oh, okay, that's condition 6. I would simply ask the question, is it possible to word that a little bit more specifically so it addresses your concern? Because it sounds like there can be delivery and pick of materials, which I'm not sure what pick of materials is, but no workers or employees can do it. Or they can come, but they can never leave.
I'm open to suggestions, otherwise.
Okay, my suggestion would be that staff reword it so it's perhaps a little bit clearer. There's grammatic problems there and conceptual problems. If you would just say that only delivery and pickup of materials to the storage building can be accomplished, that production work is not that was not to occur in the warehouse. If that's what you mean, that would be great.
Okay.
I'm just looking for something that's readily understandable to a third party who's not in this room.
Understood. If I could, I would like to work on it while we
That's
receive
great,
public
yeah.
testimony, and I can try to come back to you at the end of the hearing.
And then my other question, on item 3 on page 2, which also is repeated in condition number 7, it says landscaping will be required to be maintained in a health growing condition for the life of the project. That sounds like a manual that was written in another country and translated to English. I'd recommend rewording that. I'm not sure what a health growing condition means.
Okay. I think it was supposed to be healthy.
Or healthy and growing?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm going for clarity, so in the future, there's no dispute over what's meant. And I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay, understood.
Through the chair, a couple
Commissioner
comments. On condition approval number 9, I was wondering why the reference to Uniform Building Code was made instead of the California Building Code. Was there a particular reason?
If I could, through the chair, I think that's just simply an error. It should be the California Building Code.
So 2013 California Building Code.
Right.
Okay. And the second question was, and please direct my attention to that. I didn't see any restriction on any workshop activities. Was that something that was discussed or excluded in any way? It's hard to find that a contractor.
I think that's what he meant in condition 6.
Tried to mean, you mean?
Yeah, tried to mean, very
Okay.
well said.
That no workshop type activities would occur in this establishment?
Yeah, I can try to reword number 6 to include that. We were going based upon his operational statement, which is also included, and in the operational statement, he says that he's only going to store materials on the site, and he never mentions that he's going to actually be producing anything or constructing anything on the site.
Right. Okay. So I think that should be added.
Okay.
Through the chair.
Commissioner Petersen.
And I'll ask for your patience with me. On project description, in the middle, it says the operation would include personal storage for building supplies, including cabinets, plumbing, electrical, and so on. Operation implies the regular performance of work. And the regular performance of work could include storage materials, but it implies actual work being done in some sort of operational respect inside the warehouse. And so I'd recommend wherever the word operation is used in the condition of approval, well, it probably should be fixed in the description, but if it's in the conditions of approval, I think you're probably fine with 8 in the condition 8 the way it is. You see what I mean? I'm trying to separate out the idea of work being performed from storage of materials.
Yes, yeah, I understand.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions from Commission?
Through the chair, just one more.
Yes,
Since this is an M1 zoned district, car repairs, I'd like to also exclude any car repairs or any kind of repair work on vehicles being performed on site.
I believe that is
Unless it's
also
already there.
included as a condition of approval.
Which number is that? Maybe I
let-
skipped over it. Apologize.
Let's see. We'll review these conditions. I don't directly see that, but we can certainly add a condition to clarify if it's not there, that auto repair shall not be permitted on site. And actually, if you look at condition number 9, it does talk about,
Parking.
well, or used for vehicle repair for payment.
Number
So
9?
condition number 9 does address that.
Okay, cool. And on number 27, the spark arrestor for the chimney. I mean, I don't see a chimney in this project.
These are standard conditions of approval that we get back from fire. I wasn't sure if the existing house had a chimney as well.
Okay.
Items for the heater.
Any other questions?
No thanks, I'm
All right.
okay.
Thank you for your report.
Great, thank you.
If the applicant can please step forward. You can step to the podium, please, and state your name and also your street name.
Presented to the commission. My name is Van Lee, and I am the project architect. My client is a business owner. He's a little nervous, so I'm here to
Could you speak up a little, please?
Okay. My name is Van Lee, and I am the project architect. My client is a business owner, and he's an applicant. He's a little nervous, so he asked me to come up for him, just in case if you have any question. Through the staff report and your questions, I really appreciate you clarify a lot of language and term which we did have a puzzle with to beginning with. And the clarification is very, very clear, and we all agree with it. If you have any more question I'm be able to answer, I will be happy to.
Are there any questions for the applicant?
Through the chair.
Commissioner Petersen.
Since the staff brought this up, I'll ask you if you have an opinion. There was some discussion of a video surveillance system of the back of your property, and it actually referred to the land that doesn't even belong to you, but it's behind your property, if I understand correctly.
Correct.
Did you have any opinion about that?
I believe my client do not have a problem to put that up, but it is, I do have a concern if we intrude into the property right of other property. See, we're not supposed to civilian look at, I mean, we're not supposed to look at other people's. We don't even supposed to have a light to shine on other people's property, much less is that we video monitor it. I believe he doesn't have problem to install that, but I believe we do concern about legal right if we are entitled to.
Thank you. Very thoughtful and interesting answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Well, through the chair.
Commissioner Chase.
The hours of operation, Monday through Saturday, 7 to 9 p.m. So is this, I think this gets back to maybe Commissioner Peterson's, comments about separating operation and the storage. I mean, so what type of operation would be occurring at 9 o'clock at night? I'm just curious, on a Saturday evening, does that have, is that normal to be working that late? I'm just kind of curious.
When we were requested to put up this so-called operation statement, we also have a question, do we have to put in the hour limited? Because as you know, contractor's schedule is different from our 9 to 5. So they work, as far as I understand, they wake up very early to go to get material from Home Depot or whatever. And then they come back, they store it. Or they will pick up material at night and put it up onto their truck. So tomorrow morning, they have it ready to go to the job site. So in our opinion, we should not be restricted to a certain day or a certain hour. But somehow at the previous plan check, and we were requested to put up the hour. So that's the best we can do. Honestly, I don't see we should have a limited hour. It's not operation. It's like you go in and out the warehouse to drop off or pick up material. Of course, we do not supposed to do it at the middle of the night and wake up everybody. But like weekend or late hour, like 11 or 12, should not be limited, as my opinion.
I appreciate your concerns and your comments on that. I would certainly disagree with having it be 11 o'clock or midnight, since it is in, somewhat of a different area. But 9 o'clock then is, I'm okay with that, with your explanation.
Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
And I will officially open the public hearing. I didn't do that prior to our applicant stepping out. So is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak on this? Please step forward to the podium and state your name and also your street name, please.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
My name is Sam Lange, and I'm associated with 1121 Montgomery Avenue. That is right next door to the current site where the construction proposal is involved. This is the first time I've been here. This is the first time I've been to a public hearing, so I apologize if I mess up in any way. I don't know what my time limit is, but I might have a long list of things. But I just want to start off with, so my family owns the property at 1121 Montgomery, and we've owned that property for the last 30 plus years. So we got a pretty good handle of how the neighborhood is. As far as the noise that you folks were just talking about, I don't think that's going to be a problem for the applicant or the property owner. We already have noise from the airport, the airplanes. We can't restrict that. We already got noise from the trains. We can't restrict that. We already got noise from the San Bruno Scavenger Company from their trucks going up and down, and we know they start early in the morning. So, yeah, I don't think the noise thing is gonna, at least not bother us next door. I believe in being friendly neighbors, and as far as I know, we've been getting along. I know Justin from prior contacts. He seems like a honest businessman that's just trying to make a decent living. And so I'm all for the project. It might not look like it based on the email that I had sent to Michael Smith, but I just want to make sure that things were done properly, both with the construction and as far as the city doing their regulations. Because I've seen some things in the neighborhood that, to me, it almost seems like the city is neglecting. Back on the topic of the video surveillance, yeah, that's fine if they don't want to put the video surveillance up. She brought up a good point. It would be nice if every property had video surveillance, because as we know, crime is just going up in every city. And then, unfortunately, we don't have the manpower as far as police officers to prevent every crime possible. But I think the main question, or main issue that needs to be addressed is, do we even know if the police department is patrolling that area that we call Railroad Place? It's an isolated area. It's not really open to the public because some of it is fenced off, and then it's adjacent to the property that belongs to Caltrans. But that would be a good question. How often does the police department patrol that area? Because based on my experience, it's a well-known area for trespassers. It's a well-known area for illegal dumping. And you're welcome to come to my property, and I can open the gate to the back, and you can see what we've been dealing with. As far as asking the city to help clean up that area of Railroad Place, I bring that up because we're putting all these restrictions on the contractor and the property owner. But where is the city's responsibility in helping us out, keeping the area clean, keeping our quality of life at a high level? They're going to build a nice building, but if nothing's done with those eucalyptus trees, it's just going to be covered with eucalyptus branches and leaves. And, to have a nice building and then, to go around the back and see all the dump back there. There's tires, shopping carts. I know the automotive shops have been dumping waste oil back there, and who else knows what's back there. I know the city has cleaned it up on at least one occasion that I can recall, maybe 3 years ago. But I think it was more of a PR thing, just to, oil the squeaky wheel, because I was the squeaky wheel at the time. But ever since then, there hasn't been any follow-up maintenance that I can recall. As far as the parking situation, okay, so the city's going to restrict the contractor, the tenant, the property owner for parking spaces. But let's look at the overall picture. Montgomery Avenue is a two-way street. There's only parking on one side of the street. That side of the street would be directly in front of our property line, next to the sidewalk. Directly across the street, you have the AT&T building, and you see the nice wide sidewalk there that is all red curved. I don't know why. Maybe it's because they don't want any vehicles parking next to their building. I don't know what the situation is with the city on that. But we can't even park there because it's a red zone. We can't park there, but construction or maintenance vehicles that service the manholes on our block, like the electric company, the cable company, the water company, and who else knows who does what down there. There's literally 8 manholes within a confined area, like maybe within this 4 rows of chairs. 8 manhole covers. And the sidewalk has been deteriorating for as long as I can remember. And I don't know if anybody's ever sued the city, but it's pretty ripe. Somebody's gonna get hurt, and somebody with a little knowledge with the lawsuits, might want to take advantage of that. Because I've complained to the city so many times, but it's like the city's going to wait until they officially make the property owners pay for or require them to maintain the sidewalk and, bring it back to a good condition. All right, so I already brought up the parking situation. I brought up the trees in the back. The trees need to be trimmed on Railroad Place, and then the dumping needs to be cleaned up. And then as far as all these restrictions that you're putting on the contractor, I can see that happening here in this room, but reality, I'm not talking specifically about them, but other shops that are on that block, if you go back there and research their use permit or what their business was for and how many parking spaces they were assigned, you probably have 90% non-compliance. In addition to the parking situation, we've got body shops on the block that are literally making the street their own little parking lot. They do half work on a car, they move it out to the side while they're ordering parts, they move another car back in their shop. If you go out there, you will see cars missing a bumper, you got primer paint on one side, you got windows cracked, you got markings on there. It's all related to the body shops. Trying to figure out if I missed anything, or did you guys want to take a break?
Well,
Okay.
thank you for your...
I'm sorry, almost finished. There was one little request. I was going to see if we can get motion sensor lights on their side, maybe just for the back to help. If there's trespassers back there, at least it'll light up. I know the police will appreciate that because that's probably the only way they're going to know that someone's actually walking back there is if they see a motion sensor light go on and off. But other than that, unless they actually get out of the police car and do real foot patrol, that area is going to continue to be neglected. So I just wanted to, take this venue to report all this frustration that I've been dealing with. And I just hope that the city follows through with the sidewalk repair, the trimming of the trees, the dumping, and maybe look into, all this available parking space on the street, why it's being used by other automotive shops for their business.
Mr. Ling, thank you for your feedback.
Thank
It
you.
certainly is important to hear all of those specifics, and I know that our commission takes all of that into account, and staff makes note of every detail. And we do have code enforcement, several other ways to mitigate some of these issues, and I feel reassured that they've noted every detail of it, and we'll speak to that at one point, or not necessarily tonight, unless you'd like to, Director Woltering.
Through the chair, I really would like to comment and indicate that our staff will get your name and contact information because we would like to visit the site and have our code enforcement staff go out there and take a look and take care of dumping issues, tree issues, and many of the issues that you talked about. So if we could get your name and contact information, because we will follow up on all of those matters you talked about this evening. With respect to the application, what we're trying to do is the applicant indicated that they're going to use this facility for storage. And as a consequence of that, they're providing less parking than we would normally require if they were doing more on site. So that's why Mr. Smith in his staff report has put in conditions kind of limiting how they can use that site, because that's what they proposed. And so we're making sure that the conditions reflect what's been proposed in terms of the project. But we'll be happy to meet with you and visit the site. Thank you.
Sorry, you kind of lost me. In simpler terms, what do you mean? That their parking is just limited to just...
They're proposing a contractor's storage yard. So the idea is that they would store materials within the storage facility. They would not be doing work, per se, contractors' work at the facility or having employees there throughout the day. As Mr. Smith indicated, there would be deliveries. People would pick up and drop off materials, but there would not be employees there throughout the day, and he'll be modifying the condition as requested by the commission to reflect that. So it's storage use only.
Okay. yeah, I'm all for it. I'm not
Okay.
really looking for any other restrictions on it. I mean, yeah, they're more than welcome if they want to have employees. I don't think I'm going to have a problem next door. Just to add on to something, I just wanted to give credit to Michael Smith, the senior planner, because I emailed my list of concerns, and he came back with a response very promptly and very detailed, item per item, and I really appreciated that. And when I read his responses, I was like, finally, I reached somebody at the city of San Bruno that cares. And that's really how I felt, so I just want to give credit to Michael. So you guys already have the concerns that I brought up on the email, so it will be included with whatever decision-making.
Thank you.
Okay, I appreciate it, thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak on this project? Okay. We'll close the public hearing and bring it back to commission discussion.
Through the chair.
Commissioner Chase?
I just would like to comment on the David, I believe his name was, or the last,
Sam Lane.
pardon me?
Are you referring to the speaker?
Yes, I am.
Sam Lane, I believe.
No, the gentleman who just spoke. Anyway, his idea of the motion sensor, I think, is a great idea in lieu of perhaps video camera. It's way more of a deterrent, I feel, for people dumping. I mean, light goes on and, it might get startled and move on. And you got a video camera, it's like, they don't really care. They don't really know if it's on or not. So I personally like that idea of the motion sensor. And if that was included in this as a condition of approval, that would be great. If the applicant would be willing to do that. It didn't sound like they were too interested in doing the camera anyway, so maybe this is an alternative for it, as a thought.
Let's go back to discussion with the commissioners and see if there's any other comment or a response to Commissioner Chase's statement.
Through the chair, I just wanted to get staff opinion on that.
I think that's a great idea, and that could be added as a condition.
Thank you.
And so, just for clarification, would that be in lieu of the surveillance camera?
Yes, that's my understanding.
Any other comments? Is there a motion?
Through the chair, I believe that our senior planner, Michael Smith, has some revised language to offer
That's
you
correct.
as well.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that.
Through the chair, this is a read into the record a revised condition number 6 for you to consider. Just keep it simple. The storage building shall be used only for the storage of contractor materials. No individuals shall be employed to work on site.
Great.
Simple. Thank you. Is there a motion?
Through the chair,
Commissioner Mishra?
I'd like to recommend the Planning Commission approve AR 15-006 and UP -16-004 based on findings of fact 1 through 8 and subject to conditions of approval 1 through 28 with modified condition of approval number 6 and 9 to read the California Building Code. Was there anything else?
There's the motion sensor lights
In lieu of the
in
camera?
lieu of the
Surveillance.
surveillance.
What number was that at?
I didn't find it.
If there isn't one, I'd like to add a condition of approval number 29 for motion sensor light.
And would the motion maker clarify in lieu of the surveillance?
In lieu of the surveillance. Yes, thank you.
So through the chair, that would be an added condition, and I think there was another condition that said, with respect to landscaping, health, there'd be just a correction to say healthy.
Healthy, correct.
And with that, I think that addresses your comments.
Okay.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. There is a 10-day appeal process before any action can take place. Thank you. You're welcome. Okay, let's see. Now we're moving on to 73 Scott Street, item C. It's a request for a use permit to allow a rear single-story and a second-story addition that would add a total of 1,326 square feet of living area to the existing single-family dwelling, resulting in a building with 2,382 square feet of living area and 2,781 square feet of gross floor area. The project requires a use permit because it would increase the size of the building by more than 50%. For sections 12.200.030B1 of the San Bruno Municipal Code. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Commissioner. As you mentioned, this is a request for use permit that will allow a rear single-story addition, one-story vertical addition. It adds a total of 1,326 square feet of living area. It's a building size of 2,382 square feet of living area, 2,781 square feet of gross floor area, including the garage, and it needs a use permit because it increases the size of the building by more than 50%. This project, as I mentioned, an additional aspect to this project beyond the addition is that there's going to be conversion of the existing accessory structure in the rear of the yard in order to expand it to allow it to accommodate 2 cars, 2 vehicles. It's 18 feet wide. It's an existing structure that staff believes is existing but can accommodate 2 vehicles. Staff conducted a site visit to confirm that it would be able to accommodate 2 vehicles. They're proposing to replace the 8-foot door on the accessory structure with a 16-foot door to accommodate the 2 vehicles. The ground floor changes would include a kitchen remodel and the addition of a great room and both a front and rear covered porch. The second story would add 3 bedrooms, a bathroom, and a foyer. The proposed addition would utilize exterior materials that match the existing home's finished materials, so it would expand in total from 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom to 5 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, for a total of 2,382 square feet of living area, not including the garage. This item went before the Architectural Review Committee at the July 14th meeting, and they moved to bring this forward to the Planning Commission hearing with 2 additional items, one of which was included in the plans, which is to provide a full landscaping plan. Staff wanted to ensure that we saw the full landscaping plan to ensure that it met the minimum pervious surface requirements for the project, meeting development standards for the R1 district, and also addressing a parking pad that is currently in front of the home because there was a garage, as you can see in Exhibit B, under photographs of the subject site. There's currently a parking pad in front of the home that's being used to store a vehicle because that section of the home used to be the garage before they built the accessory structure in 1952. So staff believes that through the landscaping plan that's attached to the plans before you, that it would improve the neighborhood through adding additional pervious surface and converting the front yard into a proper front yard. An additional item brought up before staff at the Architectural Review Committee meeting was to just confirm that the side yard area that's being used or proposed to be used as a driveway for cars to access the rear accessory structure meets the minimum width requirement. It's approximately 8.5 feet, and staff took pictures on a site visit that you can see again in Exhibit B of the existing garage, the parking pad in front of the garage, of the gate and the driveway to confirm that the gate indeed opens and can meet the minimum width requirements, and then of the driveway itself. And staff measured and confirmed that those conform to minimum requirements to allow vehicles to access that area. One additional thing that staff did notice on that site visit was that the parking pad that's indicated on the plans as existing in front of that accessory structure, actually part of that parking pad is not It's not paved, and as you can see in the photo that says parking pad in front of the garage that has the truck parked on it, that area actually is dirt. It's unpaved. So staff added a condition of approval, which you'll find as condition of approval number 13, which proposes to indicate on the plans that the area to the right of the driveway in the rear yard is currently pervious surface, but it will be paved to meet the driveway requirement, ensuring access for 2 vehicles into the garage. Staff also noticed that there was a closed drying structure in the yard that could potentially impact the ability for a vehicle to park in the garage. So staff proposed that if that is the case, that it be moved to accommodate a free and clear pathway for the vehicle. Additionally, as part of the staff project analysis, staff is able to support through findings 1 through 6 that the project would meet the findings of fact. And regarding the public comment period, the section that states that no comments have been received as a completion of the staff report, staff did receive a comment today, actually, that from an adjacent neighbor indicating some concerns regarding the project. Staff confirmed that the project meets the building height requirements, that it is less than the maximum permitted in the municipal code, and that parking would be satisfied for the project through the removal of the parking pad in the front of the home and a conversion of the rear accessory structure. And this concludes my staff report. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff?
Through the chair.
Commissioner Petersen?
On page 4, under staff's project analysis, it says the applicant will enlarge the garage door to 18 feet to allow 2 cars to park in the existing detached garage. Actually, the applicant's plans indicate a 16-foot wide door. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so it should be 16.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Thank you for your report. We'll open the public hearing. If the applicant can please step to the microphone. State your name, your street name, and your description of your project, please.
Hi, my name is Praveen, 73 Scott Street. In fact, if you look at the plan in the front, we are extending the porch area, so the parking pad will be gone. So we will be removing the pad, the existing right now, right in front where there was existed before there was a garage. So there comes like a extended porch. So we'll remove the pad.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. Any questions of the applicant? Okay.
Just a second, I'm trying to understand your comment through the chair.
Yes, Commissioner Petersen.
The proposed first floor plan is on sheet A2, and it shows that the covered porch is going to be quite a bit wider and go as far as the existing concrete for the old driveway. But are you saying you're not going to remove the driveway?
We'll remove the pad.
The what?
Where the car is parked, if you look at the diagram. So we'll be removing that one.
Okay, I don't understand that, but
Through the chair, if we could clarify, there's an existing pad that's to be removed, and the gentleman, the applicant, is indicating that that pad will indeed be removed, yet they will be constructing that front porch area.
okay, so it's just the
clarifying
way
that
it is
the pad
per plan.
will be removed.
Okay, I just want to make sure it wasn't different than the
No.
plan. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. Is there anyone else from the public who wishes to speak on this project? Okay. Please step to the microphone, and also your name, please, and your street address.
Yes, my name is Justin Liu. I'm the property owner of 69 Scott Street. And what else did you need from me?
Just your comments.
Yes, so here are my comments. My father is living at the property on 69 Scott, and he has concerns about some of the parking and the tenant situations. So I'm not at the properties, and my dad is. He lives there, and according to him, there's at least 8 people inhabiting that property, the 673 Scott, and they have at least 5 vehicles in their property. And this is just causing a situation where, because Scott Street is already very narrow, it's tough for him to navigate in and out of his driveway. And I visit him about once a week at Scott Street, and whenever I visit there, all the spots are taken. So I just want to be assured that with this new construction, that they will, if they still have that many vehicles, that they will utilize the most of their parking structures to free up the street parking.
Thank you. Is there anything else?
Yes, and regarding the attendance, as I said before, there's about 8 people that live at that property, and the neighbors can be a bit unruly at times. So there's been a situation where 2 teenagers from that home decided to just sit in the front porch for no particular reason. The front porch of our property on 69 Scott. And I mean, we had to ask them to leave, but it was just strange for them to decide to sit in our front porch for no particular reason. There was another incident where they decided to play soccer in their front yard, and they were kicking the ball around, and then the ball collided with the wall of our house, and it made a really loud sound. So it just got us concerned. I mean, I spoke with them afterwards, asked them not to play soccer in our front yard, but it just these are just things I wish my dad didn't have to deal with. I mean, he's just living alone by himself, and he's just trying to have a quiet life. He's in his senior age. He's turning 80 pretty soon, and I'm just concerned about the parking and the tenant situation.
Is there anything else?
No, I think that's it.
Okay. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else from the public? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to the Planning Commission discussion.
If there are no more comments, I'd like to recommend that the Planning Commission approve use permit 16-12 based on findings of fact 1 through 6 and subject to conditions of approval 1 through 28. With a change, right, to 16-foot door?
Correct. I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. And there is a 10-day appeal process before any work can begin on the project. Okay. Thank you.
Through the chair. Based on what previous Justin, what he was speaking to, I mean, there's really, I mean, what do you do with something like that? When somebody's sitting on the porch, you know, it's nothing that we can do. We have no, you know, say, we don't have any, you know, way of monitoring that. I mean, it's gotta be like a police issue, I would think, or?
Commissioner Chase, on that, you know, all those items that were described are, you know, clearly unfortunate and not generally within your purview as planning commissioners. They are nuisance items. They are items that are very unfortunate and should be reported to the police as needed, and our police department would certainly respond. And it's, you know, obviously unfortunate. I think these issues fall more into police enforcement category, and that's what I would recommend.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up, Commissioner Chase. And to the speaker that was presenting, as commissioners, we're very, you know, our guidelines are to address building and all the things that go with business and building. And some of those other situations, as our director indicated, are not things that we can control on our end. Of course, we always encourage when situations come up at the commission that if there's a way to be able to have good communication with your neighbors, sometimes starting from that point and having that opportunity to meet and talk about it. And it may not always be comfortable or easy, but it is a start. And that there is some level of boundaries and guidelines and respect for one another. And that is an important thing. So I hope that it does move in the direction of creating some better neighbor opportunities for both of you. So,
Through the chair, I just wanted to add to that, you know, this is a good opportunity to exchange phone numbers and build that relationship, because escalating to the police is obviously, I would prefer to be the final step, but having a open dialogue would be encouraged, and this is a great opportunity for you to share phone numbers, email addresses, and be able to build that relationship. So I would definitely encourage that. Thank you.
yes. And I just want to make one other comment. You know, as there's different times in lives that we do different things, and with a senior citizen living there, life is very different. And when there is a thriving family, life is very different. So coming to some level of compromise and discussion would be probably really important to establish. And I hope that this particular opportunity, as you brought some items forward with the hope that they get better, not for a complaint, because I heard them as wishing that things would get better, and that there was this chance to, now that they've become public and you're here, that you, as you step away from the chambers, that you can go out and have some level of exchange. If nothing else, a good handshake, you know, a gentleman's agreement to move forward. So with that, I wish you well. Okay. Yes, you may, if you can step to the podium. Please state your name and also your street name.
Hi, my name is Asha. I'm from 73 Scott Street. Previously, my house was on rent. We were living in Hayward. We just moved back in our house. So whatever the tenants did, so we shouldn't be taking responsible for those things. So we just moved back here in last October, I think, maybe. And then we just starting to live back in San Bruno. We were in San Bruno and we moved back to Hayward. Moved to Hayward and we moved back to San Bruno right now. So our house was on rent. So the tenants, whatever they did, we don't know what had happened previously. And we have only like maybe five cars and with 3 people living in the house right now. And we have our grandson that is living with us right now. That's why we have to extend the house because of him, and like including him is full. And we have a big family that coming from overseas, and we need space to for them.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to the next item is item 5D, and that's affordable housing ordinance and impact fees. And it's really a report to provide feedback to staff and take public testimony on the residential impact fee and the commercial linkage fee nexus studies, demonstrating the impact of new housing or jobs on the need for affordable housing in San Bruno, and proposing permissible and reasonable fee levels. And also make a recommendation to the City Council regarding adoption of an affordable housing ordinance to replace Chapter 12-230 of the San Bruno Municipal Code and impact fees. Staff report, please.
Good evening, Commissioners. Is this on? It's on?
Yes, it is on.
Okay. Good evening, Commissioners. As you mentioned, I'm here to discuss and provide you with a summary about an affordable housing ordinance and affordable housing impact fees, as well as to receive your comments and any comments that the public may have. Briefly, what I'm going to talk about are first, give you a brief background about nexus studies and impact fees. What are they? Then give you a little context and background about essentially the affordable housing crisis in San Bruno, in the Bay Area, and the region as well. I'll talk a little bit about the nexus study methodology, which is really important to understand how they work and why we're proposing them. I'll talk about the affordable housing ordinance that will implement the impact fees. And then, which very importantly, consistency with the city's housing element. So first, next slide. What are impact fees? Impact fees are charges imposed by jurisdictions that can be used to support and build new development. Since the 1970s, California cities have used impact fees to help pay for items like roads, parks, and schools. Impact fees on housing are generally designed to help mitigate the impact of new housing or jobs on the need for affordable housing for very low and moderate income households. Many jurisdictions across the country and throughout the Bay Area have shifted towards the use of impact fees to address the impacts of new development on the need for affordable housing. And what is a nexus study? Well, the Mitigation Fee Act, which governs impact fees in California, requires that a jurisdiction conduct a study, which is called a nexus study, to understand the local real estate market and the connection between new residential development and new non-residential development and the increase in demand for affordable housing before it can impose an affordable housing impact fee. San Bruno participated with about a dozen other jurisdictions in San Mateo County in a project called the Grand Nexus Study. This was a county-wide effort through the 21 Elements collaborative process, which I think you remember we've worked on to do the housing element and other work on other housing issues as well. Several communities, including Mountain View, San Carlos, Sunnyvale, Menlo Park, and Redwood City, have already implemented housing impact fees. And as you've probably seen in the news, I believe it was last night, or it was in the newspaper yesterday, the city of San Mateo and Foster City reviewed impact fees at a public hearing. Two nexus studies were prepared for San Bruno that evaluate appropriate impact fees tailored to local conditions and needs. One is the commercial linkage fee, which obviously applies to commercial projects, and the other is a residential impact fee nexus study, which applies to residential development. I'll refer to these collectively as just the nexus study. And you received these two studies, and they're also available to view at the Community Development Department. The City Council reviewed the nexus studies in October of 2015 and again in a study session in April of 2016, and agreed that impact fees could be an important funding source to promote the development of affordable housing in San Bruno. The council directed staff to draft an ordinance to establish impact fees for residential and non-residential development projects. So let me give you a little background. San Bruno established the below market rate housing ordinance, which I think you're all aware of, in 2008. That ordinance requires new for sale and rental residential development projects of 10 units or more to provide 15% of the units within the development to be affordable to very low and moderate income households. It also includes a provision to pay an in lieu fee as an alternative to providing the affordable units, which must be approved by the City Council. However, a 2009 California court decision called Palmer versus the City of Los Angeles invalidated the rental requirements of inclusionary housing programs throughout California. And although Palmer did not affect ownership housing, the BMR ordinance is essentially operating at half strength at this point. And in fact, what you'll see is a lot of developers moving towards rental projects versus for sale projects because they don't have to pay the fee. And that is happening all over California. We've recently recovering from a pretty disastrous recession, which essentially in which essentially the housing market collapsed. There was virtually no housing development between 2008 and the early 2012, that time period. But the recovery has created conditions that have severely impacted housing affordability, especially in the Bay Area. Additionally, other events have contributed to declining housing affordability and severely constrained the city's ability to address its affordable housing needs. One is the dissolution of redevelopment agencies in 2012. As you know, the state of California eliminated redevelopment agencies, and in the last year of the San Bruno redevelopment agency, there were approximately $2 million in housing funds that were generated by the redevelopment project. Those are no longer available. And that's substantial for a small city like ours. In addition, there have been cutbacks to federal and state funding, and the Palmer Court case, as I mentioned before, restricts local affordable housing requirements. And next slide. And one of the challenges is this. This is from our housing element, our previous housing element, and you'll see what our regional housing needs allocation was. It was 973 units, and it's broken down by income level. So as you can see, we had a certain number of units at very low, and moderate income levels that was our target. And so what was actually accomplished? Well, as you can see, it's essentially 44% of the units that were built in San Bruno were above moderate, and 54% were moderate, and about 2% very low and low income households, affordable to low and very low income households. So essentially no units to accommodate the lower end of the income scale were created. Next slide. And I'd like to point out that contrast with the previous period when we actually did very well, and that was when redevelopment existed. And through redevelopment, the city facilitated the development of about 325 affordable units, and we exceeded our targets at all income levels, except for actually we built more lower income housing than we did above moderate. And so our challenge now is in this current housing element cycle, 2015 to 2023, the total number of units of our target is 1,155, and the breakdown is similar to what it was the last time, but it's a rather significant target for the very low and moderate income levels. So that's our challenge. And one of the things that is influencing the housing affordability crisis and the lack of housing in general, or the not as much as is needed, is the growth in the population, in jobs, in households. And according to the Association of Bay Area Governments, in the Planned Bay Area, which looks at our forecast growth through 2040, you can see here that the growth for the Bay Area is very substantial. The population is expected to grow by 2.1 million people. Jobs are expected to grow by 1.1 million, households by 700,000, and the need for housing units is about 660,000. Next slide. And just to give you an idea, or to put this in perspective, between 2000 and 2010, the Bay Area produced about 233,000 units, and that translates to about 23,000 per year. Between 2010 and 2014, there were much fewer units were created, about 38,000, and that was about 9,600 units per year. And with the projected forecast and growth from ABAG, the number of units to keep up with that growth would be about 23,000. That's going back to those earlier levels of high production. So you can see where the need is huge, and so the pressure on housing prices is also really huge. Now, well, actually, no, I'm sorry. This is also a Bay Area trend. Another thing that you can see that's happened in the recovery period is that the jobs that have been created have been largely in the upper income category. So essentially what this looks at is it just divides jobs into three different categories: the higher level, middle level, and lower paying jobs. And as you can see, between 2001 and 2007, there were about 34,000 high-wage jobs produced, less middle-wage jobs, and there was a negative growth in the low-wage jobs. Between 2007 and 2010, which was the height of the recession, there was still a little bit of increase in the high-wage jobs, but there was a substantial decline in middle-wage jobs and also in low-wage jobs. And now with the recovery, you see there's still growth in the high-wage jobs, which is higher than the other two, and little growth in middle wage and more significant growth in the low wage. But the overall impact is that a lot of middle-income jobs have been lost, and there's less affordability in the Bay Area. Next slide. Now we'll look at San Bruno, and this first slide is a trend in for sale housing. So it looks at medium home prices, single-family homes, and condo prices. And as you can see at the at the bottom of the recession, single-family homes were about 500. The median price was about 525,000, and now, or actually in earlier this year, they're up to about 900,000. So that's almost doubled within a few years. Condominium prices have risen equally. And as we see every day, the housing prices continue to rise. Next slide. And these are rents. And as you can see, I'm just going to look at the middle one, which is a 2-bedroom apartment. So in 2009, you were looking at about $2,000 per month. And then in 2016, $3,200 a month. So again, really significant increase in rents. Next slide. And this slide gives you just a sort of a snapshot of the income level for a very low and moderate income household, and what that household can afford to pay. So, as you can see from the prices and rents that we just looked at, it's significantly below what the market is offering. Next slide. And then this illustrates that point visually. It just shows the blue column shows the cost of a single-family home, and the purple shows what a person at those different income levels can actually afford. Next slide. And this is the same thing for a condominium. It improves substantially, obviously, when you get up to moderate income. But below moderate, it's not affordable. Next slide. And this illustrates the rental levels and affordability. And once again, you can see even up through moderate income salaries, rents are not affordable. Next slide. Yeah, that. And we took a look at this just to see, what could somebody afford? What's the sort of the bottom end of affordability in San Bruno? And as you can see, even a single room in a house is kind of out of reach for a lot of people. And we reached out to HIP Housing that has the home sharing program in San Bruno. And what they're finding is that they're getting a lot of inquiries from people who can afford to pay more, who are, well-educated, younger, and they're out there competing even for this lower-end housing product. So that's another sign of what the pressures are. And then I'd also like to point out that the improved economy has also increased pressure on the non-housing market to produce more office and commercial space, creating new jobs and competition for housing. Okay, so how does a nexus study work? Here are the steps that are involved in determining what an impact fee would be. First, the nexus study identifies the residential and commercial development types. In the case of the residential study, it looked at single-family homes, condominiums, and apartments. In the case of the commercial study, it looked at offices, retail, and hotel. And the market area that was examined, it was the city of San Bruno and neighboring comparable markets like South San Francisco and Millbrae. The next step is to estimate future impacts based on conservative assumptions. The residential study estimates the household income of buyers and renters and calculates the induced jobs and wages linked to spending. So the money that those households would spend in the community and the jobs that would be created to service the new residents. Then it determines the expected number of new worker households and their annual incomes. On the commercial study side, it's much more direct. It's the actual new workers that are added to a commercial business, an office, or retail. And it looks at what their incomes are and the number of homes needed for these new workers. The third step is to calculate the number of new workers, of these new workers that I just mentioned, that would be eligible for affordable housing. So this determines the need for affordable housing, which is then sorted by very low, and moderate income households. The next step is to calculate the difference between what a new worker household can afford to pay for housing and the cost of building new housing. So this determines the amount of subsidies needed to build affordable housing and the maximum justifiable fees for each development type. Then, really importantly, step 5 is there was a feasibility study done for both Nexus studies that looked at what fees are really appropriate, what fees would not negatively impact the feasibility of a project, because the maximum fee might do that. So this step determined appropriate fee levels and that would provide for reasonable profitability and not inhibit new development. 3 different fee levels in addition to the maximum fee were tested against the project assumptions. So it essentially looked at 4 different scenarios. So now we'll get to the proposed reasonable fees. The Nexus study determined that fees can be charged on both residential and non-residential development while maintaining project feasibility. However, staff proposes appropriate fee levels based on the feasibility analysis, which is generally below the maximum amount that's justifiable. And one thing I also want to emphasize is that in the below market rate housing program, the in lieu fees that could be paid as an alternative to providing affordable housing end up being roughly equivalent to what these impact fees would be that we're going to look at right now. So on the residential side, the residential impact fee for single-family homes, the maximum justifiable fee was determined to be $27 per square foot. And since single-family homes have the highest profitability and the highest resulting threshold for financial feasibility, a fee close to the maximum seemed to be justified. And staff recommends an appropriate fee level of $20 per square foot, which is in line with Redwood City, Cupertino, and San Carlos. For condominiums and apartments, these two types of development share similar characteristics, such as size and parking and other sort of cost factors. The maximum justifiable fee was determined to be $51 per square foot for condominiums and $56 per square foot for apartments. However, staff recommends the appropriate fee level at $25 per square foot, which is in line with Mountain View, Sunnyvale, and San Jose and Cupertino. So that table summarizes the maximum fees on the left, the proposed fees in bold, and the fee per unit is on the right. So the assumptions about unit size are in the next to the last column, and the last column shows what you would pay per unit in the development as an impact fee. Next slide.
Mark, pardon me. Quick question for you. I think the numbers could have been transposed in terms of single-family versus apartments.
Yeah, this is the correct one.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. It is 20.
Yeah, 20 for
single family. Okay.
And, 25, yeah. And these are residential impact fees in neighboring or other cities on the peninsula. And as you can see, there are a lot that are in that sort of $20 range. Some are higher. Palo Alto actually has a very high, I didn't put it, I don't think it's there. It's a very high fee, and it's because housing prices are just so high there. But so as you can see, we're sort of, in what we're proposing is in line with what's already been approved in other communities. So for the commercial linkage fee, the feasibility study analyzed a variety of factors to determine financial feasibility, including market capitalization rates, other cities' fees, and our own fees as well. Generally, the study looked for a return on cost, just a standard sort of factor to analyze a commercial project with, between 6.75% and 7%. And what you're going to see is that the recommended commercial fees are much lower than the maximum justifiable fee that was calculated in the Nexus study. And it's also lower than other jurisdictions, especially closer to the center of Silicon Valley in the southern part of the county and peninsula. The feasibility analysis showed that the maximum fee would have a negative impact on financial feasibility for all other prototypes, while the lowest fee that was analyzed, which is $5 per square foot, has a modest impact. One reason that the cities in the southern peninsula can charge higher fees is because lease revenues are significantly higher than in the northern peninsula, resulting in much higher returns. So in all three types of development, office, retail, and hotel, the proposal is for $5 per square foot, even though, as I said, the maximum justifiable fee is for office is $196, for retail it's $235, and for hotel it's $132. We're proposing $5.
Your numbers are different than the slide.
Say that again?
The numbers you just cited were different than the numbers on the slide. You said the office was $196 and hotel was $132, but I don't know which one is right.
Oh, that's a good point. I believe that, well, I'll have to look in the report, which is right here. I'll give you an answer for that at the end. That's okay. The numbers are, there's a huge gap between maximum justifiable and I still would want to see it in this. But, so according to the staff report, office was $196, retail $235, and hotel $132. So we'll confirm.
Looks like the word just transposed. Not transposed, but inverted. Switched. Inverted the office and hotel.
Yeah, and I'd also like to note that the analysis in the report also indicates that a 10% increase in hotel and office revenues could support a linkage fee of $20. So it rises very quickly, depending on rents. And recent data shows that hotel and office revenues have increased in San Mateo County by 5 or 10% in the last year. So this is based on a point in time, which was in 2015. So I think what we would recommend is that we take a look at this again in a year or so, and to possibly adjust the fees.
Mark, on that, if we could just add to that, the city is going to be embarking on a comprehensive development impact fee study this fiscal year. So it's important, I think, that as we look at these fees for affordable housing, we'll also be looking at fees for traffic impact, for example, and other areas of impact here within San Bruno, and starting perhaps at the lower end now and making sure we have adequate capacity to bring in other impact fees for development that we may want to consider will be important, while, as Mark has pointed out, not inhibiting the development activity and interest that we have in San Bruno at this time.
Thank you. I just also want to point out on page 6 that the numbers you just reported, Mark, are correct. It does say on page 6 that the office is 196, retail 235, and hotel 132. So it's just the slide that's
Right.
off, but the
Slide-
report is
slide
correct.
off, yeah. We got kind of both. Apologize for that. Next slide. And this slide just gives you an idea of what these impact fees mean practically. So for a 67,000 square foot building, and as you know, you've just approved a 67,000 square foot building, if you remember, the total impact fees would have been $335,000 for that development. Now, for a mixed-use project, 50 multifamily units and 7,500 square feet of retail. So if you looked at the 50 multifamily units, assuming they're condominiums, $20 per square foot, that would generate about $1.187 million. And then the commercial portion of that project would be about $37,500. So that gives you a sense of the revenues that those fees would generate. All right, so the draft affordable housing ordinance that's attached to your staff report establishes the requirements for the impact fees, alternatives to payment, and the use of the fees. A separate resolution will establish the specific fee amounts. So the ordinance includes information about what projects would be subject to the fee. So for residential projects, even though the Nexus study justifies charging the fee on any new residential project, staff is recommending a more conservative approach with a minimum project size of 5 or more units, so not to have the fee on smaller projects smaller than 5 units.
Does that mean that there would be no fee on 5 units? A project of 5 units?
Yes, there would be a fee on projects of 5 units.
So it means that there would not be a fee on 4 units?
4 or less. And one of the, if you look at the Subdivision Map Act, a parcel map versus a tentative map. Parcel map is up to 4, and then beyond 4, it's a bigger development. And duplexes or fourplexes are also possible, and that could impact a development like that.
Would a duplex be looked at as 2 units?
Yeah. And the threshold for the BMR ordinance is 10 units. And so we're proposing the lower number because it's more in line with what other cities are doing, and it's just will achieve more of our affordable housing goals. So in terms of the requirement for the fee, rental projects would be required to pay the fee. And that is because, as I mentioned to you earlier, the Palmer court decision. So the fee comes first for rental projects. However, if a developer wanted to do something else, like provide units on site, the city would certainly take a look at that as an alternative to paying the fee. In the case of for sale projects, we would still require units first and then fees as an alternative, because really our goal is to produce units. It's to produce affordable housing. Collecting fees is great, but you still have to build the housing. So you would prefer if a developer were building the housing. And then projects subject to the commercial linkage fee. Our proposal is that all new development projects would be subject to that fee. Since the fee is at the low end, it is expected to have minimal effect on the viability, even on small commercial projects. The fee would not apply to public uses such as hospitals, community facilities, child care centers, churches, or schools. In a mixed-use residential commercial project, both the residential and the commercial fee would be applicable to the proportion of in equal proportions to the project. So the ordinance allows alternatives to fee payment, and that's specifically for rental housing. And
Excuse me,
Yeah.
are you on this slide, or have you?
no, I'm not on that slide yet.
Oh, is there another slide?
No,
Oh, okay, thank you.
I'm leading up to it.
Just trying to
Yeah,
figure
sorry
out
about
where
that.
I am, thank you.
Sorry about that. In addition, the ordinance has provisions for an affordable housing plan, an affordable housing agreement, which a developer would have to enter into if they were building the affordable housing units, and that would describe the number of units, the level of affordability, where they're located, and other aspects of the affordable project. And then would also enter into an agreement which would be go forward with project approvals and be approved by the city council. So the decision-making procedures, the city manager or designee may approve the payment of a residential impact fee. So if a developer is paying the fee, then that's a pretty routine. They're agreeing to the requirement, and the city manager would be able to approve that. However, in all other cases that involve development of on-site or off-site affordable housing, or any proposal by a developer to meet the requirements through another alternative method, would be considered by the city manager or their designee and subject to final approval by the city council. Now, this is the impact fee use. So an affordable housing fund would be created for the impact fees, and this is required by the Mitigation Fee Act. So this would be a segregated fund, and the funds could only be used for affordable housing purposes. The Mitigation Fee Act also requires very strict reporting requirements. So there are annual updates on collection and expenditure of fees, and identifying future projects. And there's also a 5-year examination of how the fees have been spent, whether fees have remained in the fund for more than 5 years, because they can be taken away if they're not spent. So I think importantly from your perspective is the consistency with the housing element of the general plan. And next slide. There's a lot of words there. So the ordinance is clearly consistent with the general plan housing element. The 2015-2023 housing element includes goals and policies to increase the supply of affordable housing, to meet the needs of lower-income households in San Bruno, and specifically, Housing Element Program 3J specifically calls for the city to participate in the San Mateo County-wide Nexus Study, which we've done, and to determine a permissible and reasonable fee for San Bruno, which is what we're doing now. So this affordable housing ordinance and the impact fees accomplish many of the goals and policies contained in the housing element related to affordable housing. The next steps for this process are to receive the Planning Commission's input and recommendation, and to forward that recommendation to the City Council for consideration. If the City Council adopts the affordable housing ordinance, the impact fees would go into effect 60 days following adoption. And that concludes my report, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for the report. Well done. Delivery of amazing news. Any discussion from the Planning Commission? I just want to announce that Commissioner Chase did give me a note that he needed to leave, but he also gave me his comments. So I'll hold those comments until we reach that point of comments, but I wanted to bring it back to the Planning Commission for any comments or discussion. Looks better.
Through the chair.
I'm not moving again.
I had
I already moved once.
through the chair. I had three
Commissioner
comments.
Mishra.
The first was that I was a little concerned that if the intent of this ordinance is to build more affordable housing, why would we even make it a reasonable fee? If the fee allows us to be higher, I'd rather have the fee higher so that developers are forced to build more affordable housing units. So that was my first concern. I would rather not make it reasonable. If the market allows it, make it as high as possible. That's my first comment.
Yeah.
The second comment I had was, by using the fee to fund housing, I wanted to know what was the next step in terms of having unintended consequences of building units in our city that forces. I remember having this comment in 2008. I would like to avoid our city not have clustering of these kind of units in one area. That, throughout, I guess, our history of 100 years of doing this, it's created zones, and I'd like to avoid that in our city. So going back to my first point is, if we can build a unit within, if we can build affordable housing within the units, I would rather go for that. My third question was more about the U.S. stats, whether those numbers for affordability was adjusted for market and inflation, because it seemed like the numbers didn't have any footnotes on them. So if you were if I pull one of the stats from the earlier slides, you were comparing moderate income or throughout the 15 years, obviously with 2% inflation through the recession, that number changes a lot. And I wanted to make sure that it was consistent in terms of inflation. So those three comments I have.
Any other comments?
What, were you expecting an answer?
No, it's just questions. I don't know if you would have answers
Yeah.
at this point.
So, remind me of the first question. I would.
The first question was, if the goal of the program is to build affordable units, why would we make it reasonable to pay a fee?
Yeah. So, I think that the importance of this Nexus study is that it not only established, it calculated a maximum justifiable fee. So in theory, let's just say in terms of the new jobs created, it says, okay, the maximum justifiable fee is $196 per square foot. That would accommodate, the people that need need housing in those income levels that would be working in those jobs. So, you know, we're way below that. But then the feasibility analysis is just, you know, it's essential because a project has to be feasible for a developer to consider investing in the project. And so these fee levels that we looked at are sort of just below the threshold. So that's why they looked at four different scenarios. And I think what we've done is tried to identify the ones that won't discourage, you know, interest in investing in the community, and will generate the maximum I think that we could expect to receive.
Okay, I guess I still don't think my question was answered.
Well, I mean, I thought you were saying that
I'd rather people build units.
yeah,
Right.
right.
It just seemed like
Right.
putting a low reasonable number encourages
Yeah.
people to just pay the fee.
Yeah, well, I mean, $44,000 per unit for a single-family home is
Still, I'd rather
significant.
pay the fee. If it's reasonable, I'd pay the
Yeah.
fee.
Yeah.
So I'd rather make
Well,
it not reasonable.
I think another issue is that we're also guided by the Mitigation Fee Act. So you can't really, you know, you have to follow some guidelines and do what's reasonable.
I would let,
Through the
I
chair.
guess, I don't want to have a back and forth on this one, but I would
Yeah.
just say we should consider the fact that
Yeah.
if we have a threshold for what is reasonable, it shouldn't be on the lower end, is my point. It should be at a point where most developers find it reasonable to build a unit than it is to be paying a fee, essentially, is my comment.
Mhm.
So I don't know if you want to move to second and third point.
Through the chair, a question for Mark. In terms of the existing BMR ordinance and for sale housing, we do currently, and we anticipate going forward, really looking for units to be built within projects.
Yes.
So in terms of a developer doing a for sale project here in San Bruno, even though there would be the mitigation fee as an option, the city really is in a position of requiring
Yes.
inclusionary units for sale housing. Isn't that correct?
Yeah.
And our basic position really has been to include and scatter, not to look at having inclusionary units, say, clustered in one project in one area, but to basically blend in those units. And so that, I think, continues to be the direction with what Mark is proposing. Where we have a challenge, though, is the rental housing, where maybe, Mark, you can go into a little more detail in terms of Palmer decision and the impact fees and where we are in terms of rental housing.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Palmer decision essentially invalidated rental, inclusionary housing for rental projects. It basically says that you cannot, the landlord has the right to set the initial rent for a unit. And that's the Costa-Hawkins Rent Act of whatever, 1990-something. And the decision was that, yes, inclusionary rental falls under the Costa-Hawkins Act. And so that just essentially invalidated all rental inclusionary. However, impact fees there's a different logic to impact fees that's covered under the Mitigation Fee Act. And I think that the fee level that you're concerned is, I think the fee level was chosen to be up at that threshold where it would make sense for a developer to provide the units rather than to pay the fee. And that's sort of what the intent of the Grand Nexus study that was done for the county was to look at those fee levels, to take it right up to that point where, the decision-making point would be provide the units and not pay the fee.
Right, it would be a no-brainer to build a
Yeah.
unit.
And I think you're concerned about concentration?
The second point was, I was trying to figure out if there were standards to avoid the concentration. Obviously, when you look at moderate to lower income housing, the idea that people gravitate towards is, it needs to be close to transit, it needs to be accessible, et cetera. And what that leads to is a certain locale within any city that has that already, either a TOD or whatever it may be. But we need to find ways to have standards that allow us to be flexible in that zone.
Yeah.
Even though the concept would be to be able to make it not just accessible, but also available.
Right, right. Which is, I think, why we would favor building the units, because then it would be a percentage
Right.
of the units in the project. And the other point is that the idea of the mitigation fees is really to provide funding to create housing for working households, because it's all based on the number of workers that are generated by either new spending of new households or new employees of jobs, people with jobs in new commercial development.
Okay.
So it's really workforce housing, and it's not. These fees cannot be used for example, transitional housing or other things that affordable housing fees can typically be used for. It's intended for working families.
And if I could mention again that the intent here is to start a little bit lower and go through our process for the comprehensive development impact fees this year. And then, as Mark indicated, we would fully expect on a regular basis to reevaluate these fees. But it's going to be important, I think, to make sure that we have capacity for other possible impact fees as we evaluate, traffic, for example, and traffic impact. I use that as an example. We don't have a traffic impact fee here in San Bruno. That's very unusual. Most communities do. And that's often a fairly substantial fee. So I think that the intent would be to put this affordable housing impact fee in place, proceed with the overall development impact fee assessment, put that in place, and then come back and evaluate where we are in terms of affordable housing impact fees. And we agree in any case, in terms of for sale housing, the intent certainly will be to include and to blend and spread those units.
Great.
Mark,
Yes.
what would be the pros and cons of San Bruno having a higher fee in comparison to the chart that you showed that had the lower fees of $5, and that if we were to go the $15, $20, $25, what would be the pros
You
and
mean
cons?
for the commercial development?
Yes.
Well, the feasibility study shows that projects stop being financially feasible when the fee is raised. I mean, it shows them being marginal to begin with, which is interesting. But it's really, that's sort of the point where you can impose the fee, and given all the other city fees, other fees, and the development cost, I mean, that's the point where a development is still feasible. So if you follow the report, if you go above, if you charge $10 and the market conditions were the same as, the point in time where they analyze this, then in theory, a developer would not choose to invest in a project.
And have you actually seen that take place time and again?
Well, I mean, I think
Is that a theory?
what happens is that, yeah, it is theory, but I think what happens is that people go through the process that we're going through now, is, they do these detailed studies and, set the fee at a level that they don't discourage development.
And of course, being San Bruno, we're at the other side of Silicon Valley, and as we can see, it's creeping, you know. Our
Right.
city is really shows that with some of our growth
Yeah.
in the last many years.
Right.
And so Silicon Valley is growing into this direction. So
Right.
does that mean that sort of sky's the limit, or you know, there were other communities that it doesn't really matter what the fee is?
Well-
But as your chart showed, which actually was eye-opening to see that some of
That gap.
some of those Silicon Valley communities, the fees
Yeah.
they were relatively low.
Right.
And that in itself,
Yeah.
you know, surprised me.
Right. Yeah. You know, as I say, in San Bruno, in Palo Alto and cities in the Southern Peninsula, they're a lot higher. But then again, you know, housing prices are way higher. Revenues for commercial operations are higher, or rents are higher. And you know, it's just different than it is here. But you're right. The area is changing fast, and we're seeing a lot of high-tech development in this area as well.
And although we're changing, we're also forecasting.
Yes.
And it's difficult to forecast when there hasn't been that demand,
Right.
although that's changing certainly in the rental market. You know, to forecast effectively, and you know, it's an important and a serious matter to take into
Right.
consideration.
It is, which is why I think, as we mentioned, that to reevaluate this at a certain point is an important.
Research is
aspect of
really
this.
important here.
Yeah.
Any other? Commissioner Petersen?
To the chair. Have you ever worked for a developer?
No, I haven't.
Did the report consider the effect on a city's, through its ordinance, of what the ordinance provisions are in other nearby cities?
Yes. Yes, that was an important part of the feasibility
What did it
analysis.
say? I don't remember that.
Yeah, in terms of, I think I mentioned that in terms of the residential fees, we're comparable to a number of other cities. For example, Redwood City just adopted a residential impact fee that
No,
is
I remember that.
very similar to ours.
My question, I might not have been clear. Just to give you a concrete example, say for one impact fee or another, San Bruno set a fee of $6, Millbrae had 5, and South City had 10. What do you think? Do you think that would tend to have a significant effect on the way developers viewed developing in San Bruno?
You know, that's hard to say. I mean, the point is, the purpose of the analysis is to gather data within the market area and to come to conclusions based on the data within the market area. In addition, you look at one of the other factors you look at is what are neighboring cities doing as well. So I would say that if you're looking at a neighboring city that is somewhat similar, I mean, you would expect to see, you know, fees in the same range. You know, they won't be exact, but you know, this is based on a numerical analysis, and that's, you know, we're following the results of.
So all other
feasibility
things
study.
being equal between 3 adjacent cities, if one city had a fee that was half that of the other 2 adjacent cities, do you think that would make developers more likely or less likely to develop?
I think it depends on other factors.
No, other things being equal.
Well, yes,
Okay.
but they're not equal. So, I mean, land
really?
prices and so forth are different. But yeah, all things being equal, yes, of course.
I guess I'm a little bit, I would argue towards the lower fees rather than the higher fees, simply because one of the key concerns of developers are what is the risk involved in going ahead. And while it looks like you can make a break even or better if you sell your units or property at the current market rate, if it goes up a little bit or down a little bit, it can have a tremendous difference. And so these fees are just another cost that they put in there.
Right.
So the more the fee is, the more the cost is, which skews
Yeah.
the payback
You know,
on it.
something I sort of did not mention earlier, but one of the considerations is, first of all, housing prices are determined by the market.
Cool.
Just
Right.
because it costs you more to build something, you can't charge more for it if the market
Right.
is, so the rents and sale prices are determined by the market and, the quality of the development. So to the extent that development costs increase, that tends to impact land value. And so that's another thing that the feasibility analysis looked at, was it looked at per square foot price of land in the area. And it established sort of a threshold where if the land value drops too much, it's not going to happen. The seller's not going to sell it. So that's another important determination, is you have to keep the land value at the right price to make the project work.
Right.
So it also looked at that.
Okay, anyway, my main point was, I think the city risks sending their developers to other places if our fees are significantly more
Yeah.
than nearby ones, because developers, to an extent, they look at a general area and say, what might work here, and usually that overlaps several cities. Although in San Mateo County, it might not overlap more than one county, but certainly more than city. Okay, in this Planning Commission's recommendation today, the main concern is, do we feel this is consistent with the general plan, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Through the chair, Mark, I think you should expand on that a little bit, because we are bringing this to the commission for recommendation on the ordinance, the resolution, and the proposed impact fees, because in terms of next steps, the city council would receive your recommendation, and they would be considering at their meeting first reading of adoption of an ordinance to establish this program and fee schedule. So this is a public hearing. This is a formal recommendation that could be coming from you tonight for the city council then to proceed with formal adoption of this program and fees.
Well, I'd extend it to saying that I think as far as that goes, I would shoot toward the lower end of a reasonable fee schedule on any subject, with the eye to the concept that you can always raise something, but once you scare away all the critters you're trying to catch, it's hard to get them back. But if you're low, you can always raise your prices a little, perhaps somewhat subtly, but you scare them away on day one, you may never see them again. And I think the objective of this is to get some more affordable housing.
Right.
So in that respect, I think taking a mild approach at the outset, I think it is a good way to reach that objective.
Any comments?
I have my own opinions, but it's fine.
Well, my thoughts are that I do support Commissioner Petersen's comments. In the end, when you raise a fee, somebody absorbs it. It's either the consumer, and it's typically not the developer. And so the thought of being able to think about stepping up fees certainly is an option, whereas stepping down really creates a lot of other issues. And I think that it's probably a larger risk. The thought of being able to have the higher fees and have developers pay, sometimes that's the opportunity of doing business. But I think in our community, we are a growing community, and we're relatively, we're attracting, we're becoming the community to be in. And so close to the San Francisco and the Silicon Valley, we're sort of right in the hub of all the pieces with the airport. And I think that this is an opportunity to be able to have reasonable fees, make the attraction, and then take it back to the planning table. So I support that process. I also want to read Commissioner Chase's comments, and he says that he is in favor of the staff recommendations and to move it forward to the adoption of City Council. So that's his comment. Commissioner Petersen, did I see your hand up?
Through the chair, I think there's something that's not in here a whole lot that's very important, and that is the impact on the city's infrastructure of new development, especially larger amounts of new development. And it's been my experience that developers recognize that a large development has an impact on things like traffic, sewer, water, even police. And they're not opposed to recognizing that there's a cost for those fees, that there is an impact. But they do look at it to see, is it within reason to the actual costs that may be experienced? And if it's not, then it becomes a problem. But my sense is that San Bruno hasn't been unreasonable in the past. I don't expect that it would be in the future. But this is a dangerous point for the city to choose how it goes forward from now.
Right.
If it goes gently, it's probably going to work out better than if you go more forcefully. That's just my sense.
I'd like to make just two points that I'd like to reiterate. One is that the fees are roughly equivalent to the below market rate housing ordinance fees that we already have, except that we can't enforce them on the rental side. And that on the commercial side, it's $5 a square foot is definitely on the low end of what's being levied in the other communities. So.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, any comments and recommendations for to forward to City Council?
It's the individual voting, sorry.
Yeah, this is a resolution. So
It is a resolution.
I move the resolution 2016-10 to move this matter to the council on the subject of affordable housing ordinance to replace Chapter 12-230 of the San Bruno Municipal Code and impact fees. And it's a roll
It's a
call
roll call
vote.
vote. Yes, it is.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
I have a question.
Yes.
Through the chair. In what manner would the city council receive the comments from the planning commission from this meeting?
They would receive your comments by way of minutes.
Can they be included as a cover letter with the resolution?
They would be forwarded with the packet
Oh, the packet, okay, the whole
to
thing.
the city council.
Okay.
So as they evaluate your recommendation, they would also have your minutes with more detailed information.
Thank you.
Okay.
Roll call vote?
Commissioner Mishra,
Aye.
Commissioner Petersen,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Samud.
Aye.
Thank you.
Certainly important work. All right. The next item, number 6, is discussions, a city staff discussion. And before you select the commissioners for the September 15th, Commissioner Chase did volunteer.
That's great, because at this point in the meeting, we're looking for volunteers for the September 15th meeting, so it sounds like we have Commissioner Chase, and we need 2 more, please. Okay, Commissioner Johnson. And
Well, the 2
Do we have-
commissioners are not
If
here
you,
tonight.
if you can have the meeting at 3 in the afternoon, I'll come.
Okay. If we don't get another volunteer, we'll check in with Chair Rick Biasotti and see if he might be available, perhaps pick up a 3rd member that way. So at this point, it sounds like we have Commissioner Chase and Commissioner Johnson, correct?
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any planning commission discussion?
Through the chair.
Commissioner Petersen.
Okay, Director Woltering, can you tell us about the status of the project at Taylor Street and El Camino?
I'd be happy to. That's the project referred to as the Plaza. It's sponsored by Ceres Regis, and it's 83 residential units above about 7,000 square feet of commercial space. And the staff is working with the applicant's representatives, and in fact, we'll be meeting with them later on this week toward putting together final aspects to issue a permit for shoring and dewatering. So we're hoping that we're able to issue that permit by the end of this month. That's our objective. Some things we're working out in terms of that project. We need to look at a traffic control plan. There will be a need to provide pedestrian protection around that site. Essentially, it's lot line to lot line construction, so there will be sidewalks that will need to be protected, and we'll need to, at the same time, make sure we have walkways for pedestrians to move around that area. We're also going to look at Taylor Street and San Mateo Avenue in terms of needing to probably close a portion of each one of those streets, but still allowing for circulation into the neighborhood from El Camino Real onto Taylor, and leaving San Mateo Avenue out to El Camino Real. So traffic control plan is one of the aspects that we're finalizing. We do expect that toward the end of this month, we would have a meeting with property owners and merchants in the downtown area that may be affected by that traffic control plan. So that would be, a next step for us pursuant to issuing the permit and hopefully commencing construction at the end of this month or early next month.
Great.
That's the update.
Through the chair, one other question.
Sure.
In that permit, will there be a provision for setting benchmarks all around the site on neighboring properties to monitor the elevations?
I understand what you're saying, and yes, in terms of the impact of construction activities, there will be benchmarks established on adjoining properties as necessary, as required. But yes, there will be benchmarks.
Including the houses across,
I can't be
what's that little
specific,
mastic?
I can't be specific as to exactly which properties, but yes, there is a requirement for benchmarking, and the developer will need to adhere to that requirement.
I was just looking forward to not having someone claim their house cracked and sunk, and it wasn't true, but we didn't have the data to back it up.
That is a requirement of the project.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Through the chair, did we
Commissioner
open
Mishra?
public comment for the last item?
Pardon me?
Did we open public comment for the last item?
In fact, you had really no public here.
Right.
We have one staff member.
Yeah.
So I think the chair observed that but it certainly was an open item, but there was no public in attendance here to provide comments.
Just want to acknowledge that.
Would it be wrong to reopen the item and open and close the public hearing?
You're certainly welcome to do that, and just to make sure that all is in order,
It
you're
could
certainly
affect a lot.
welcome to do that.
Please.
Okay. Well, I will open the public hearing, ask the public if anyone would like to speak from the audience.
That's on
Seeing none,
item D, affordable housing ordinance. Is
that's
that-
correct, that's what
okay.
I'm referring to, item D, and affordable housing ordinance and impact fees. And we will now close public comment and make note of that. Thank you.
And would you indicate that the action you took would stand as taken?
Yes, I will, all action that was taken stands.
Thank you.
All right. And then the last item is the planning commission. The next planning commission will be held on September the 20th at 7 o'clock right here at the senior center. That's for our audience at home. And the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.